Hey everyone, welcome. And I am wondering today if you have ever had an experience where you walked into a WordPress admin and questioned whether it was even the WordPress admin at all. Or you have installed a brand new product and it just made you feel good when you installed it. Those two experiences are kind of like the polar opposites of the spectrum of things that we want to talk about today with you. So here we go. This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights, product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show.
Hey, everybody.
Hey everyone, this is WP Product Talk. My name is Matt Cromwell from Stellar WP.
And I'm Amber Hinds from Equalize Digital.
And today we're talking about building better product experiences in WordPress.
And that is why we have invited Mike today. Mike is the founder of 4i Studio, the creator of the innovative Ollie theme for WordPress, which is pushing boundaries on user experience in WordPress. And we're excited to have you here, Mike. Welcome.
Thanks so much. I love this show, and I'm happy to be here finally. Thanks.
Great. Well, we would love to have you give a little introduction to yourself and what you're working on.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if folks don't know me, I've been around WordPress for a long time, since around 2008, 2009, something like that. It's so long ago, I can't remember. But yeah, I've been around a long time. I used to build websites with it as a freelancer, and then got into the product space and had a lot of success with my first theme business, which was Array Themes. And ran that for quite a while, had a lot of success, was on WordPress.com and Theme Forest and basically everywhere you could sell themes back then. And then around the time that the block theme or the block editor arrived, I started working on blocks and things like that. And I built the Atomic Blocks plugin, which people really loved. And then shortly after that, that was all acquired by WP Engine. So I joined them and was a principal engineer over there for a while. And then most recently, I've started working on and launched with my partner, Patrick Posner, the Ollie block theme and Ollie Pro, which is like a paid add-on, paid design library that sits on top of the Ollie block theme. So that's where I'm at. And I'm just kind of all things WordPress education and design and development and just trying to be a voice for the future of WordPress right now.
Awesome. We're glad to have you here, Mike, and glad to talk about this today. If you are here watching live, then there is a little chat area over on the side where we are at as well. And we'd love for you to just say hi, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, where you are watching from. Most importantly, ask Mike some really hard questions, because we will highlight your hard questions on the screen, make him uncomfortable, and we'll get those answered for you. So use the chat. But first things first, like every week that we do this, we like to talk about why the subject is important in any way at all. So who cares about product experiences? Why should we make it nice at all? Personally, over the years, I have seen a wide variety of products. I've built a wide variety of products that have looked a various degree of ugly or difficult or challenging. But even like the way in which we have evolved, let's say the Give WP plugin, the UI there has evolved a ton over the years. And I could say really, really clearly that as it evolved over time, that customers were able to answer their questions about how to use the product more easily. And that to me is always the thing that drives why product experiences have to improve. Because I typically go from a customer experience perspective with most of this stuff. I really want that when somebody drops into any of our products, that they feel like they know what they're doing, that they don't have to ask a lot of questions, that they don't have to click on a link to go to my website to read a document about settings in order to figure out which setting they have to enable or disable. I want it to feel intuitive and that they're able to get to success as quickly as possible. And the only way that happens is by having a great UI that explains itself really well. I mean, I think if you do that really, really, really well, you're already like a lot of the way towards success, no matter what kind of product that you have. That's personally my take in a nutshell. But Mike, you are here because we'd love to hear about your take. What's your take? Why is this subject so important for WordPress product owners?
Yeah, I mean, you've basically said it in a nutshell. You've said it perfectly almost, because that is what it's about. It's not just that your product looks good and kind of speaks a certain level of quality on that level, but also that it is as self-explanatory as it can be within the confines of what we're talking about here is WordPress, which is kind of its own closed system. But WordPress is particularly difficult because it is this monolithic thing that is, you have all these constraints inside there, but at the same time, people can extend it in any way they want. They can make their own setting screens. They can make custom interfaces. They can change the whole editor. They can do this. They can do that. And so user expectations inside there are kind of like all over the place too, right? So it's kind of a moving target, and knowing what is a good experience inside WordPress and what is not is not so clear. So yeah, I would say what you said is perfect, and the best you can do inside WordPress, and I think particularly where we're at now in my world, I'm in block themes and full site editing, so I'm dealing with a lot of user questions and frustration around the UX for that. We have a huge task ahead of us right now, in that we're not just creating products for it, but we're also having to simultaneously create education along with these things. And in my opinion, right now, no new product for this new modern era of WordPress will succeed without an educational element to it. It is upon all of us as product makers, even people like Amber in her world, it is on all of us to take on this part of this burden of education, just like we have always over the years. But there's a lot more to teach. There's a lot more to kind of get out there. So I think the product education part of it is a super important part of the user experience right now as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've seen a ton of that with our product, especially because it is intended to maybe help people learn something, but it's on a topic most people, even very skilled developers, don't know a lot of detail of. And I think you're right. Like, having that education component as part of your user experience is really important. And a lot of developers of plugins are really good at making products, especially in the beginning. I think a lot of us kind of solve our own itch, right? But thinking about how you can create that user experience that, welcomes people in, like you were saying, Matt, makes it really easy. And I think really, if you're thinking bottom line, like, why is this important? It's a stickiness factor too. If people don't know how to use your thing, they're not going to keep using it. And so as product owners, I think we really have to think deeply about what the user experience is in the product, because we ultimately use and buy our product. And that's probably one of the most fundamental things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think part of this, though, a little bit begs the question that I think we should address for sure is what is it that actually makes a good product experience, especially in a WordPress environment? How do we actually know when something is a bad experience in WordPress? How do we know when it's a good experience in WordPress? I hinted to it in the beginning about how you can definitely walk into a product and be like, where am I now? Like, am I even in my admin at all? What happened? Did they kick me somewhere else? Or
This
you
is
come in
the
and
debate about onboarding wizards, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they take over the whole screen and you're like, where am I? I don't know where I am. Mike, I'd love to hear your take a little bit. Like, how do you figure out where is that line? Do we want it to look exactly like WordPress? Are we just using the WordPress UI? Because the WordPress UI isn't particularly nice a lot of times in the admin area. Or how much should we customize it?
It's an unanswerable question almost because
Okay.
of how the dynamics of WordPress. But I will say that in terms of with we'll talk more about Ollie, but we
Yeah.
built a site wizard with that, which gained some traction. But we made the decision very early on that we were going to build it in the same style of where WordPress was going
Mm,
because, and this I think gets into what like makes a good experience in WordPress is that there's already enough for users to learn and figure out inside of WordPress. If you're throwing at them with every plugin or theme that they install a new experience on top of that, a new interface, new paradigms, setting screens that look like this and this like this, it becomes just a hodgepodge and it's so hard to follow. And it does feel like a fragmented experience. And so, even if and when WordPress gets their new admin design and it's more cohesive and it's feeling good, even if on that core level it's better, and then plugins are still doing all of their own crazy stuff, it's still we cannot bring it into like this harmonious experience with doing that. So with Ollie, we decided very early on we're going to make this our kind of theme dashboard screen look exactly like the site editor, which is not extendable right now. So we had to just build it from scratch to make it look exactly like it,
mm,
because we want that experience of the site editor and our experience to kind of merge and feel like, oh, I know this screen. Even though it's an Ollie
Mhm.
screen, I know this experience. I know on the sidebar the things I can click, it's going to navigate, and I know to get out of it, I click the little WordPress icon and I'm out back into the dashboard. So I think that's a huge benefit in creating a harmonious experience and kind of meeting user expectations and kind of giving them those little breadcrumbs that they're familiar with. And I do hope that with we've seen some screenshots of the new admin redesign, and sort of a standardization around settings pages and things like that,
mhm.
that we can all buy into, and hopefully the best products out there do, because that sets a good example. Because then we do start to get this harmonious thing that feels right. It feels cohesive. It feels like things are playing together. Plugins are working together like they should. And I don't know. I think that overall that wins us in the long term. We can take this thing another 10, 20 years if we can get this thing really clicking together.
Let's
Yeah.
hope.
I agree that there probably, if we're talking about this, what's good, what's bad, it probably is really good to have something that cohesively fits in WordPress. Um, and I think the hardest challenge there is knowing what how far ahead to look, and it could change. And so there's this degree of, as a WordPress product owner, particularly if you're getting, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, million users, that you probably have to have at least an eye on WordPress Slack. Like, that's, you have to be paying attention. You can't just wait until they're like, "Oh, hey, we have a beta." Right? Like,
Yeah.
you need to be thinking much further ahead on what's happening, and following sort of news across various teams to make sure that your product's going to align with that, because it's hard to design. I do think, one of the issues that some plugin developers have said is the reason why they've created different screens or admin experiences is that the core does look really dated. And yes, we're now talking about an admin redesign, but we're talking plugins that years ago were like, this needs
Yeah.
to look more modern. And so
Yeah.
I think that is a challenge. And so something that we've talked about ourselves, because we very much initially relied on, let's just make it look like core WordPress, but it doesn't look very great.
Yeah.
We've
Mhm.
made a
You're right.
little mini iteration to separate it out a little bit better. But one thing we've talked about is, at some point, there are some plugins that are used by so many websites that, so a good example, and one we've talked about, is Yoast, for example, is used on so many websites. And so we're like, that almost becomes a point that if you're like, you could also match your design, like how people navigate through the settings pages with the little
Yeah.
secondary menu on the left, to that, because enough other people have used that plugin that now your product will sort of match right? That. And so
Yep.
it starts to build a consistent interface. So I think that's another sort of thing, which is you can take lead from other products as long as they have a big enough distribution potentially. If you're not satisfied with core or you don't know where core is going.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting idea. Not to say necessarily that the Yoast is necessarily a
The
great
best.
product
Yeah.
experience. I'm not saying it one way or the other, but I could see what you're saying in terms of like, because
Yeah, and there could
it
be
can
a
get
different plugin
consistency.
other than Yoast. I randomly picked that one because there's a lot. I'd say like if it's got more than 1 million installs, it's probably worth looking at how
Yeah.
they're handling setting screens on any of those plugins, right?
Yeah.
And because then you start to say, if we're looking at good experience being consistent, then it could be that could be a right solution because it creates consistency.
Yeah. I will say real quick that one thing that I got kind of caught on is I have this small blog series on my personal site that I call Shiny New Plugins, where I review the newest free plugins on .org. I haven't done it in a little while. I need to pick it up again. But there was one article where I reviewed and I said, I'm seeing a lot of new plugins out there that are like drastically changing their whole settings UI, completely different from WordPress. And I was like, don't do that if you don't have to. And I highlighted one that was really, really, really gaudy, like really loud, really gaudy. That plugin author emailed me afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, it is really gaudy because we're in the Philippines, and I think it was the Philippines or Taiwan, I forget right now, and our people really expect loud colors. They want loud colors. They want big elements on the page." And he's like, "I did it on purpose because that's what my audience wants." And I was a little bit taken aback by my prejudices, I will just say. But then I also was like, I get you, I hear you. That's your audience, but you're on .org, and it's all in English, and it's a global audience now.
Yeah.
So, and if you're only going to target that one niche of the globe, which is plenty of people, then I can see that. But if you're planning on a world stage, you have to think a little bit different than that.
Yeah, I get that, and Amber made a great point. Like, there's a reason that people have chosen to go their own way to create better setting screens, is because, like, yeah, if you were just to do the WordPress core one, it looks like it's from 1996. You just have a set like you just have checks boxes and some inputs, and that's it. And like that is just simply not acceptable this year or 10 years ago, even, to be perfectly honest. I think it actually highlights that maybe, possibly, we have waited a little too long to address that. And I think hopefully that's a good lesson going forward. It's like and there's a whole reason of like, there's a whole ethos about staying simple and extensible and not being opinionated in design. And I think that has worked for WordPress for a long time, but I do think we are staring at a different reality now and a different future, and a lot more competition, and the caliber of the competition is significantly higher than you could possibly imagine it was 10 years ago. So I do think we have to like look at that and recognize that no, we probably need to move a little faster going forward and be a little bit more opinionated so that we can give better experiences out of the box. Because there's a lot of conversation about WordPress's growth. Where are we plateauing? We dip, we rise. Our block theme's getting adoption. It's kind of slow. And so I think to kind of offset that and to kind of help guide everyone, point everyone to say like, no, we are investing and we are going forward and we are going to be one of the best experiences out there, I think would be a good sign and something that people could really latch onto as like an exciting thing. So yeah, hopefully we start to see some movement like that, because the current ad still today, if you were to try to make a settings page as the core one, it still looks 100 years old. So what are we going to do with that?
Yeah. I think it's interesting, the point of like getting products to lead WordPress adoption, because if you think about it, WordPress itself, WordPress, not Automatic, not WordPress.com, doesn't really do advertising, right? Like a lot of the marketing for WordPress comes from products.
Yeah.
Like I'm a nonprofit that needs a calendar on a website, or I need to get donations, or I need XYZ things. Like I want to sell stuff, and I start Googling like e-commerce software, right? And then I maybe get Shopify and I get WooCommerce, right? Like, and so that I think the products bring people to WordPress. And so I think you're right, Mike, like having that good experience as people onboard through a product. I mean, Elementor is the same way. Those people all use WordPress. I think half of them probably don't even know they use WordPress, right? But you go to the Elementor website, you buy it, you get onboarded into this thing and get set up.
Yeah.
And if you have a good experience there, it's going to bring people and make people stick with WordPress, make it grow. I mean, NASA told us that part of why they chose WordPress was because of our products being available, and there weren't other CMSs that had an accessibility solution for them. And so I think like as product owners, thinking about not just can you bring people to your product, but you could bring people to the whole ecosystem is a really interesting thought.
Amazing. Yeah. There is a question here, a little bit niche, but it's definitely about product experience. I wanted to highlight super quick. I don't think he's speaking to any one of us directly.
Or Ollie. I was wondering if this was related to Ollie.
Is it related to Ollie, Mike?
Will you make the pro plugin play with ACF and the blocks, or will you have to use some external plugin to get them to play nice with ACF and other custom post types?
They might be talking about Ollie, and I actually got a similar question in a podcast I did the other day with Jamie from Poodle Press. But I think this is a good question. It is kind of niche, so I'll just high level it. But I don't think we're going to make any kind of specific integrations for like ACF in particular, especially one of the things that we're trying to align with Ollie, like I said, in Ollie Pro is like, we're trying to be a native WordPress solution product. We're not trying to really dip in to say, oh, we're making WooCommerce stuff, or we're in the ACF business. Particularly with ACF, what's interesting is like now we have custom fields, the API that's coming there, and being able to register custom post types natively with the UI also in the works. I would much rather wait for that and then be able to build and ship things to work natively with that. So I'm not saying ACF isn't popular or powerful or anything like that, but I think the kind of direction that I'm looking to go and to take this experience is to keep it super native and therefore super like cohesive and seamless and all inclusive, and something that like you turn on WordPress, it's all there for you. You don't have to go doing these other things. So that's kind of where I would land on that.
Yeah.
Is that because you don't like we've all had that experience where we've installed a theme and the first thing it says is, okay, you need all these 8 other plugins.
Make it work.
Here's the required ones and here's the 2 recommended ones. Should we install them all now? Otherwise this theme literally won't work. And you think that's not a good user experience. Is that your approach on that?
100%, because then you just become this you become this tiny entity with all of this stuff around it, and then you're responsible for keeping up with all those products. And then with my old theme business, we did a WooCommerce theme or 1 or 2 themes, and then
and every time they had a new template update, you had to go release a theme update.
100%. And then people are coming at you with support questions, and even though you tell them to go ask the WooCommerce question, they still come back to you, and then you end up answering it because it's just easier for you to answer it and get it over with. And then you just become kind of a pipeline for other people's support and things like that. So I also think if there are themes made specifically for WooCommerce, you should just use that anyway. Those people spend their time optimizing for that. They help cover all the edge cases and everything like that. So I think that's just the way to go. But Amber, you're absolutely right. Is that once your product is now attached to all these other products, and the experiences in those other products might be bad or not great or whatever, and that reflects on you. And then so I don't know, it's a tough thing. The pluggable world of WordPress is kind of a gift and a curse sometimes. So it's a great point though.
Yeah, it's fun to have plugin folks talk with theme folks about the pain points that WordPress has, and our tendency to kind of point at each other sometimes, or to just both be like, "Yeah, this just sucks." I think the one thing I do like about this question too is kind of like the plugin-ception concept that can happen sometimes, where it's like, well, now I need a plugin to fix my plugin, or I need a plugin to like adapt this other plugin, or now I want to have a custom post type and this theme doesn't support post types very well, and so now I have to have a page builder in order to build out a post type, and you start to like have to think through too many steps just to come to success in one form or another. And that, I think that's a little bit of the line that you're trying to, when you say we're trying to have this be as native to WordPress as possible. I think if every plugin and every theme thought more like that, then ideally, in an ideal world, they would play a lot better with each other. They would register their taxonomies correctly. And then the other folks who are checking for taxonomies would pick them up automatically because it's just a taxonomy. It's not some weird thing, you know? But so often these types of weird collisions happen because folks do get a little bit too creative in the way that they're trying to implement stuff.
But it's worth highlighting for a moment here that WordPress Core has this same problem too. Like a really great example of this is the outline in the post editor where it tells you the headings that are on a page. It only recognizes core headings. So any other builder, any other block, library, or even just like a custom block that is being inserted into that page that has a heading on it will not show in the outline. So I know we're saying like everything should just respect and like try to do it in a standard way, but if we can't even do something that seems so basic like that in core, like I don't know if it's as easy as it might be.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think there again, it's one of those spectrum types of things. I've seen, the way in which, honestly, very, very early Divi in the very beginning, like it did nothing like what WordPress did, and I think on purpose. And it made it impossible to ever get off of Divi. For just as an example, they're radically different today, and they actually are a really amazing team. They do a lot of great work, but it wasn't that much different back in the day from like what was that one, the Visual Builder one in Vado?
Visual Composer.
Visual Composer too. Like you just find this one niche of the WordPress code and you just exploit it so extremely. That it becomes untenable for anybody to interact with it in any way.
All right. Now, though, from a literal devil's advocate standpoint, I don't know if Divi would say it's a problem that people can't leave Divi.
I mean,
like as a product owner,
right?
It's a perspective.
It's
a perspective you can have.
Yeah,
sure.
It's a feature.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. It was really interesting. If anybody watching, we had Matt Mullenweg on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he brought up the data liberation project. And
moving between
one thing that's really interesting about that is like the big headline about data liberation is like getting folks off of Squarespace, off of Wix. But if you go and you look at the actual project, there are WordPress products on there as well. There are WordPress themes that have custom blocks that are part of the data liberation project. How do you get off of Elementor and get onto a 100% Gutenberg website? And so it's one of those things that's like, is it actually really beneficial for any of us WordPress product folks to think, I want to have customer lock-in? Is that actually really good for the ecosystem? Is it good for your own business? Like me personally, I'm going to say no. It's no. Yeah, I mean, do you flirt with that line at all, Mike, or have you had to think through it in any way?
Never once, because I just am like, as I'm kind of a simple business owner in that, like, I'm here to facilitate and provide you with a product. I'm not interested in growing a business so big that I have to do things like that or keeping customers like that. If somebody's not happy with a product, instant refund, high five, see you later. Hope you come back one day. No, I'm just not interested in growing a business like that. And the complications that it brings you as a business owner in the end, and being seen in the community as somebody who's locking people up like that. So no, I've never flirted with that.
Same. Good company here. Well, let's transition into story time. And Mike, I'm going to set you up a little bit. Uh, so we want to talk about personal experiences with building great product experiences. And the one that kind of really puts you on the stage was the Ollie onboarding experience, which got a little bit of drama around it in terms of like it wasn't accepted on the theme directory because essentially the onboarding experience was plugin territory. You can't, and they were saying you can't ship a theme, which is essentially a plugin. I wanted to hear from you a little bit, and of course, you should say whatever you want to say. But like, it's your story time, not mine. But I would love for you to just tell us a little bit of like, from a product experience perspective, what motivated you to build that onboarding experience? Why did you feel like it was necessary for Ollie to have that kind of onboarding experience?
Yeah, thanks for that setup. So yeah, if those who don't know, Ollie is a WordPress block theme. This is a new kind of WordPress theme where everything is built with content blocks. So you can customize everything in the WordPress editor. You can change the colors, the typography, all that stuff, build new templates, customize templates. It all happens in WordPress. And so, I started building the Ollie theme. And, one thing that became very clear very early on was that even though block themes had been out for a year, almost 2 years by that point, people just were not building them. They were not creating them. They were not using them, really. Adoption is still to this day pretty slow. And then the people who were using them were like, what the hell is going on in this thing? I can't figure it out. There's a site editor, there's a block editor, there's like different screens. I'm editing my menu in a box that looks like this for some reason, and there's things in the sidebar. And so, where do I change my logo? What about my brand colors? So, I, for the longest time, have seen the power of the site editor, the block editor. As a designer, a developer, I've long wanted all of these things in WordPress. And so now we have them. So I've been excited about this stuff for years. So with building Ollie, it was like, yeah, I can build a theme. I've built hundreds of themes, had multiple theme businesses. That's not that exciting. What else can we do to solve some of these problems? And with Ollie, the idea was, okay, onboarding is not coming to WordPress anytime soon. What can we do on the theme level that can give these people a head start? Not only solve some of the problems like helping them set a logo or just pick a brand color, change, create a few base pages like a home page, an about page, a blog page, and set those so they didn't have to go digging into their settings to that weird homepage and blog setting that is somehow still a thing. But also teaching them along the way what this stuff is and like how to interact with it, and just giving them those breadcrumbs to get to where they need to be with this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, my partner Patrick and I, we started building this thing, and we knew all along it was like this probably won't fly on WordPress.org. But it was also it just felt like we were at a time where it was like, no, I think it's worth trying, because if everyone is telling me and the WP Tavern is reporting that block themes is just stale, no one's using them, I was like, maybe we can just invigorate this with an interesting experience. And so we spent a ton of time dialing this thing in and really using our pain points as WordPress experience developers and users over the years. Like, we know the pain points, we deal with them every day. So we dialed this thing in and tried to get rid of all of those things with just a few steps, just streamlining in a few screens, some of those steps, and kind of getting out there. So we, like I mentioned earlier, we designed it in the same style as the WordPress site editor, this new view. So it fit, it was like very cohesive. And yeah, we were very happy with it. Early beta testing, people were hyped on it. It was like, people were like, finally, thank you, this is great. And so we did have the confidence to submit it to WordPress.org in the theme, and we thought, let's just try it out. And so, as Matt mentioned, it did kind of become a contentious thing almost, and which is funny because I'm like the least drama person on the internet. But you still get, if you shake things up, you're gonna get in a little bit of good trouble here and there. And I thought that's what it was worth fighting for. Is like, this might be good trouble. This might actually, at the very least, it might start a conversation, and maybe it means something else. So, and it did. We submitted it. We got some forceful pushback by a very small few, and their feedback was perfectly valid. And sometimes the delivery was a little rough, but we understood that like this is not traditionally theme territory, some of this stuff. But at the same time, we are now doing things in WordPress core that are not traditional theme territory. Storing content in the database and the way certain settings are stored now and things like that. It's like,
styles.
Styles. Yeah, it's like every styles and content are now interlocked, whereas before the ethos was like, you never do that. The appearance and content are really separate. And now we're just smashing them together in a blender and saying like, well, forget about that for now. We'll come back to that fight later. So I thought, this is a worthwhile conversation to have and an attempt to do this. And it generated a ton of conversation. Matt Mullenweg chimed in. The executive director chimed in. And ultimately, they were in favor of it. They wanted to let it go. They wanted to let it release on WordPress.org, which was awesome. I thought this was really cool that the conversation even boiled up to them. This was not what we intended on, but this is how it got there. So, and I had some back and forth with Josefa in Slack, and we kind of talked it out, and they wanted to do it because they thought it could be a good, kind of like what I said, it could be a good example of an experimentation of what we can do with WordPress now. Here's what you can do if you tap into the JavaScript that Matt has been talking about for years. Here's what you can do with these new experiences if you spend the time and want to shape it for users. Ultimately, though, the pushback we were hearing from a lot of other people, and some people I highly respected, we ultimately decided not to ship it in there because while Matt was cool with it and Josefa was cool with it, it felt like we were going to be setting an example that people later could point to and say, this is why you don't do it, or this was wrong, and they got a pass, and they didn't go, they didn't do right by the community. And we just weren't interested in that. We don't want to be like, as much as I want them to experiment on .org and relax the rules for experimentation and innovation, it didn't feel like in that moment that was the way to do it. And that we wanted to bear the brunt of criticism about that going forward. So, I feel like I was grateful. There was so much optimism and enthusiasm, and I really appreciated everyone doing that. But I think we would have to do that. We need to first define at the WordPress.org level, what is the rules on experimentation, and so that we can set a precedent before throwing somebody in there as an experiment and saying like, good luck, hope it works out for you. So anyway, I'll pause there and see if there's
I think this has an interesting connection to something I sort of told you when we were doing our pre-show conversation I wanted to talk about, which is the line to where we should put something in our own product because we think it belongs in a WordPress website, or we should actually just contribute that to core. So your conversation about being, having an onboarding wizard for a theme as like, this is probably needed now. People don't understand. And I think, it is the best user experience for full site editing. I was someone who took forever to figure out how do I even like add a page to my navigation menu. And I just kept being like, I've been using WordPress for 10 years and I don't know how to do this. How can this be this hard? Right. So I think, but then we have this question of maybe that should have actually been a contribution to core because we think everyone needs this. And I'm curious, what your thoughts are on that, and why maybe you decided to build it in a theme versus saying, hey, we need this onboarding wizard for every FSE theme, and so we're going to make it a core thing that automatically triggers, and then we don't have to worry about, oh well, now this theme has one that looks like this, and this theme has one that looks like this, and this theme, right, which is that snowball of allowing one, right? I have some thoughts about this too, but I'm curious for your initial, like, why didn't you contribute that to core?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think that and there was a lot of people that asked the same question while this was all kicking up. And the short answer is designing something and creating something and implementing it in your product is so much easier than trying to go through core, and
The many
which
layers of
means,
gatekeepers.
yeah, well, just the red tape and the bureaucracy for sure, but like also just the endless amount of edge case situations that you have to consider, that by
Yeah.
the end of it, this
Yeah.
thing's been chiseled down to the most generic experience that is like almost unhelpful or unuseful in a way.
Yeah.
By having an opinion and being able to say, no, I think this is how it should be, and based on all of our testing, I think we nailed certain parts of it that I would not have been allowed in WordPress core, even as a plugin, by the way.
Mm.
So there are certain things that we did that was like, no, let's set the setting for them, let them choose a thing, and we'll set it on the underside and things like that. That I don't think you can do it with core plugins, but so we did consider that. But we were trying to also, we had been working on this theme for a while. It was time to get it out. I had a baby on the way, like the next like 3 weeks later, I had a baby on the way. And it was like, I just actually, as a new business owner, a baby on the way, I'm still freelancing on the side, freelance design partner on the side. It's like, I actually can't sit and babysit this thing through to core. And then that's a
Yeah.
full-time job. And it's
Yeah.
like, it needs teams. You need
Yeah.
teams on that to do it. So it actually just wasn't realistic that we could take what we built and slide it into a core thing.
I mean,
Although,
honestly,
yeah.
at the end of the day, I hope that there are core committers out there or core team members out there who are listening in, because the truth is, like, I think lots of folks are interested in there being some sort of at least onboarding framework in core.
Yeah.
And as soon as core folks are serious about it, they should come knocking on your door. Like, that's how it should go. Because the truth is, it, you know, why haven't we committed to core? Because there's no core submission. Like, you can go and submit ideas, and you can do a track ticket. You can say, here's all of the code, do whatever you want
Yeah.
with it. The truth is, to take that code and make it work in core, like Mike said, takes a team, takes
Mhm.
Yeah.
a long time, and that's after you get all the consensus that people actually believe it should be in core, which
Mhm.
that is sometimes the hardest process, is to
Yep.
get all that consensus going first.
Yeah.
It I I've often tried to put myself in the shoes of like Mullenweg and Automatic. If it if Give was like wildly successful and there was like a billion people who were using Give for online donations, would I just be taking core submissions left and right all the time? Like, I don't think I would,
Right.
I think it'd be like, I need to make sure that we keep the ship going straight here.
Yeah.
There was a really great example Pippin Williamson used to talk about all the time. He's like, there is a sense in which, with easy digital downloads in particular, he was like, I get customers every once in a while who say, when are you going to add shipping into easy digital downloads? And he was
Mhm.
like, never. Like, I could have 1,000 customers say that they want shipping in easy digital downloads, and I'm not going to add it because that's not its purpose.
Yeah. So did
You
you
still
hear the
have
name of the
to,
product?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a digital download product. Like, that's what it's for. You
Mhm.
want it to be WooCommerce, go to WooCommerce. You
Yeah.
have to be able to have a North Star and know where you're going. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah. And I get that, and like for WordPress, I think it rings particularly true because everyone wants everything in WordPress. I would say the one thing that is really worth listening to is if you look at the interest that one little onboarding wizard generated.
mhm.
It was being written about everywhere. It was, everyone had an opinion. Everyone liked it. A few people did like small parts of it, and uh, no matter what you thought about it, everyone agreed almost just like overwhelmingly that no, we need something like this in WordPress core, especially now where the user experience is more important than ever as we kind of head into the future. And I think that's important to understand, is that when you have that many people telling you something, you have to really log that somewhere and get the
Yeah.
ball rolling, because there was, after all that had died down, there was this initiative to get something like that in core, and it lasted maybe a week, 2
Yeah.
weeks. and
Yeah.
that was the last time it was mentioned. So
Yeah. We'll hear
it's
about it
tough.
again, and give it 6 years. We'll hear about it
Yeah,
again.
right. Yeah, exactly. But
I'm curious, did all that news and PR or whatever you want to call it,
mhm.
did that convert into a lot of long-standing users and or customers for you? Or was it just a short blip of attention that didn't actually convert into anything meaningful on the business side?
Maybe a little bit, but nothing, and WordPress is as prolific as WordPress is and powers ungodly amounts of the internet. Our bubble is still pretty small when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to like
Yeah.
to news and things like tech world is not picking, they're not picking up on our stories or anything like that.
Yeah.
So if it's not on the Tavern or a handful of the popular newsletters, it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Well, and
So
even that, like how many, 1,000 people actually
yeah,
follow that stuff?
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So no,
Hey,
I
we're
think
growing. WP Product Talk. We're getting the word out there. Like,
that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
it starts small in WordPress. That's it. The thing is with WordPress is that there are generally smaller audiences, but they're more loyal audiences, I think, in that you don't need 50,000 WP Product Talk subscribers. That would be awesome. But the ones that do follow are very likely watching it very regularly, and they're people who are plugged in to the goings on in WordPress, and that's its own powerful thing too. So,
yeah.
Mhm.
but long story short, no, I don't think it actually added too much. Honestly, I think just releasing Ollie with um, the kind of the beautiful designs that it had built into it that people thought like probably weren't possible with the site editor and the block editor. They were like, holy cow, these patterns, I can't believe you just built these with like native blocks. That
Mm,
was, I think, more impressive to people than anything. Was like, it was
absolutely.
more of a statement of like what's possible. And I
Yeah.
thought that resonated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we are getting to the end of our time, and we'd like to wrap up each episode by talking about best advice. So the idea is you're stuck at a WordCamp going different directions, and you run into somebody who's like, Mike, you got to tell me what's your best advice to make great product experiences happen. You got like 3 sentences or 3 minutes, I guess. What's your best advice for somebody like that, brand new product owner who wants to build great product experiences?
I would say, like I've always said, if you want to build a great product, you have to understand the problem deeply. You need
Hmm.
to be a victim of the bad experience that you're trying to solve. You need to suffer in the same ways that other people suffer for the product that you're trying to make and the problem you're trying to solve. Because the same is true with like everything I build. I'm having success with Ollie because of the many years I've spent building themes and the many years I've spent building WordPress websites. And so I'm able to see those pitfalls and listening to customers, listening to users, being a part of the community, understanding the conversations that are going on and the pain points. And therefore, I can kind of make an opinionated and a good guess at what a good product might be for a specific audience in that space. So understand the problem, and it'll make your life a whole lot easier. It'll remove the guesswork from creating a good product, and it'll give you a great head start.
Nice. Love it.
Mhm.
Amber, what about you?
So I think my best advice on user experience is you have to do user testing.
Hmm.
You have to bring in people who are not at your company, who have not been, in all of the discussions about what this user experience is supposed to be. Just random people that represent your target demographic for your product, and get them on Zoom and watch. Don't tell them how to do it, but say something like, okay, if you were going to install this and set up a website, what would you do? And just have them watch and narrate through and occasionally ask them questions. I think you cannot have good user experience without user testing.
Great.
Love it.
And
That's a
what's
good
your
one.
advice, Matt?
My advice, I actually give very similar advice almost every episode, I feel, which is usually like dumb it down, keep it simple. I really think when it comes to product experiences, the simpler it is, the better it is in the long term. Definitely don't try to get fancy or tricky. Like even like a really simple marketing advice I give all the time is folks like to get all creative with their buy now buttons, like let's get started, or take off over here. Like they just say all these weird words, and I'm like, no. Like tell them buy now. Like just say buy now. Like
use a word that
purchase.
makes sense.
Like just say that word. That's all. Keep it simple, because folks don't want to have to think in order to do the next thing that they want to do. They want to just understand. And that's easiest to do for a new product when you keep it really simple. As soon as you introduce new crazy ideas or fancy UIs and things like that, you start making your folks think too much. So
I love it. That's great.
Well, that is a wrap. That is all we have for today. Mike, again, I'm so glad you were here to join us and talk about your experiences and your take on product experiences, and also for introducing this topic for us. Thanks so much. Mike, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Mike McAlister, Twitter/X, or you can go to olliewp.com to check out Ollie, and you can find links to get me there as well.
Nice. Excellent. Tune in next week, folks, as we are going to have Patrick Rolland on the show. He's going to be talking about what to do about all the declining SEO results everybody's getting right now. I'm excited to listen in on that one. Katie and Zach are going to be here next week. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, did we lose Amber? I think we lost Amber.
We're going to do special thanks to Postatus for being our green room. If you're enjoying these shows, please do us a favor, hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends, reference this show in your email newsletters, and most of all, we hope to see you next week.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Nice.
Bye.
Thanks, folks.